Welcome to the Law, Your Money and You. I'm Roberta Saphire, an attorney in Massachusetts.
And I'm Camille Barron, a financial coordinator also in Massachusetts. And once again, we have a return guest with us today.
But it's been a while.
It has been a while, and this topic, I won't say is near and dear. It's near but not dear to our hearts because it has to do with money that we pay to the government, and none of us likes to do that.
Well,
But we're going to learn
that's
some
for
of the
sure.
ins and outs about that.
Yes, we are so fortunate to have with us a CPA, Alan Lury, who's been with us before. Welcome, Alan.
Thank
He
you.
also took part in when we helped bring financial
Yes.
literacy to Sharon. You were one of the prime
Yeah.
movers. And way back, before they brought it to the high school, just a small, the Brighten Up Club.
Right.
You were one of the first people to help start that, for which we thank you. But now, you have 11 pointers. We want to get right into them.
Okay, the 11 pointers. Well, I'll talk about the 11 pointers over a period of time between the ages of, during your 50s and your 60s. Critical time for married couples, individuals, especially in your 50s. That's really the prime time. You really need to be maximizing your retirement savings at that point, with your retirement within range. You really have to make sure that you are starting to look to make sure and the projections are done to determine that you're going to have enough money to retire on when you eventually want to retire. So that's a critical thing to be doing in your 50s.
Yeah, but doesn't it start, like we have young viewers too, don't you recommend that they start when they're
absolutely.
20 or...
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I have seen is millennials are aware of that. Unfortunately, I think they're probably aware of it, is that they've seen that their parents didn't do the proper saving to save money for their college tuition. And that really has put, unfortunately, a lot of millennials and even Generation Xers with a lot of debt that's been put on them coming out of college. And so that they are the primary people now, that really the first generation who really understand the importance of saving for college for their future children as well as for their own retirement. So absolutely, I mean, the whole idea of the compounding of money, and the fact is if you start very early and even if you put away a small amount, you're going to be way ahead of the game than the people, unfortunately, who are in their 50s and 60s now who really didn't do that when they were at that age. So that's why it's so critical for people to, in their 50s and 60s at this point, especially in their 50s, to really be looking to make sure that they're doing projections and having professional projections looked at, created for them, so that they will know how much they really need to put away in order to maintain close to the lifestyle that they currently have at the current point in their lives in their 50s. Some of the other things they have to look at in their 50s especially are life insurance. As you get into your 50s and 60s, the need for life insurance really goes away because your children are grown or on their way to be grown out of the house, and college is paid for, and to carry the cost, especially of whole life insurance, is very expensive for individuals. So some of the thought process is to, if you have a whole life policy, take that money out of the policy, use it to pay a 15, 20-year term fixed rate life insurance plan, so that when you're in your early 70s, you'll have no life insurance, because at that point your obligations to paying off your mortgage and in case you were to pass away in college are all complete at that point. So those are in your 50s. In your 60s, you really it's a little late. You should at that point really be making sure that you have had that money put away. But you also have to look at your spending levels. Really starting to work into figuring out what your spending budget is going to be when you eventually retire, hopefully in your late 60s, or whether or not you're able to retire right on retirement age. One of the things that I read just this week is for married couples, there are 81 different ways that they can collect Social Security. As
81?
81 different ways. It was a lot. Just yesterday, I had read that. So, Social Security planning today is such a critical item that people really have to look at that very carefully to determine when they take their Social Security. Do they need, based upon their budgets, do they need to take it at normal retirement age, or can they defer a year? Because each year you defer, you pick up an 8% additional amount of your retirement benefit.
Now, is this true whether somebody works for a small business or a large business or a big company with this Social Security? I mean, do they have, how do they know what to do with this Social Security?
Well, that's the whole idea of planning, and that's where it gets back to doing your planning in your 50s and 60s as far as to that. I mean, the problem today is that people have, even with companies, you have 401k plans, and hopefully the company is matching. The difference is that 35, 40, 50 years ago, most people had pension plans. So they knew that if they worked 35 years, they were going to get a fixed pension. Today, people just put money away in the 401k plan, and they have to hope that the stock market doesn't take a dip within the time period they're looking to retire, because it will have a significant effect on the amount of money that will be available and how much they can withdraw each year in order to fund their retirement. So there's a lot of issues that retired people in their 50s and 60s today face, and as the rest of the baby boomer generation retires here in the next 10 years or so, about 10 to 12 years, there's going to be more and more people who are going to be facing these issues as far as when to take Social Security. Do they have enough? And people unfortunately are going to be working well past retirement age because of the fact that they did not start saving in their 20s and 30s, when people now realize that they have to. People with mortgages today, in the past historically, had an issue just this past week with a client who was concerned because he has a mortgage, not a large mortgage, but a couple $100,000 mortgage. He's 70 years old. He's still working. There's an example. He's still working full time. His wife has recently cut down on her hours, and he said, "Well, we really would like to pay off our mortgage," but unfortunately, in his particular situation, they have some retirement money, but most of their money is tied up in real estate, and so if they were to take effectively half of their, close to half of their retirement money and pay off their mortgage, they really risk the situation of being house poor, which they would really not have enough money to be potentially down the road. They'd be running out of their liquid assets, and they'd just have to effectively hope that their investment property would be throwing off enough cash to support their their retirement. So it's very critical to be looking at.
So you advise them? Is there?
What
did you advise them?
Well, I advise them in this case, and we just had some preliminary discussions on this. Was that I didn't think it was a very good idea at all to pay off the mortgage, and one of the things is that I suggested was that one of the mortgages actually was coming due in the next couple of years on one of their major investments, and I suggested that if they wanted to start paying down now, taking a small amount out of their retirement savings, they could do that, and then with the excess cash that they'd be receiving because of the payoff of the mortgage on this particular property, they should then earmark all of that money that they'd be receiving to pay off them, to assist in paying off their mortgage. So I had suggested that you really shouldn't do it today at age 70, that hopefully by age 75, 76 at the latest, they'd be able to pay it off if they paid it off in steps. Plus, if they were taking some of that money out of their retirement, 4 to 5%, hopefully the market would be in a place that effectively, they'd be earning 4 or 5%, so it'd be a wash, so they really wouldn't be losing any investment money. It just wouldn't be growing during the period that they were pulling that money out to pay off the mortgage. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of factors involved. The tax side of this is that you're paying off your mortgage. with someone who has still has significant income, you lose a tax deduction.
How likely is that to go away?
Zero, because if that would have a less than zero, because of the fact that if they did that, then it would have such an adverse effect on real estate. There's no way that they're going to do away with the.
But it has come up
mortgage.
though, haven't you?
It has come up.
Yeah.
One of the
the
things they've talked
Yeah.
as far as the deduction
mortgage interest.
within
Kidding.
one of the Trump proposals or part of
don't
this
know.
tax bill is that they are going to allow people to continue to itemize their mortgage interest, but the one thing that they won't allow them to do and this is sort of it is and it isn't, is that they're going to increase the effectively give everyone a larger itemized deduction limit, so that it go up to maybe $30,000 for a married couple, and effectively that $30,000 you'd also be able to deduct your your donations as well as your mortgage interest. But as part of that $30,000 is included now would be your property taxes, and as well as your deduction that you get for paying state income taxes. So in effectively that is really detrimental to people in the Northeast and in California. So if you think about it, it's really the people who didn't effectively vote for the current president.
Oh, we're non-political.
Well,
Yeah.
just effectively what it was doing is that we have high property tax rates, which of course we have in Sharon.
Yeah, very
you know,
high.
You wouldn't, and people take full benefit of that on their federal returns. They're not going to be able to do that in the future, because it actually won't be part of a line item deduction. Now, this is all part of the tax proposal, and being a tax person, and speaking for a lot of other tax people, we had hoped that one of the first thing that would be addressed by the new administration would be a major tax change here, as far as the proposals that the candidate is now bringing into the administration. However, that has been sidetracked, and it doesn't even look like at this point today that we will have any major tax legislation in 2017. The only thing that will probably occur later in the year in December is that some of the tax extenders that were passed in 2015 for 2015 and 16, because way back then there was an anticipation that there'd be this big tax bill in 2017, will need to be addressed for 2017.
What do you mean tax extender?
Well, these are some deductions that have not been made permanent. So effectively in 2015, they extended it for 15 and 16 to be addressed in 17. Now, if there's not going to be a major tax bill, they'll probably just extend it for 17. So,
On the Social Security issue, once they reach age 70, though, that's the max.
yeah, that's the max. Yeah,
So
they
you
they
should
have
try,
to.
if
Well, then
possible.
Oh,
you
it's-
have
it's-
to,
to
you have to
try-
take it out, don't you?
Yes.
Well, when you reach age 70, that 8%
That stops.
incremental increase in what you get for Social Security benefits each year stops. It
Stops.
levels off at age 70. So ideally, if someone can wait until they're 70 to start collecting Social Security, that would be the maximum income that
Does
they would
anybody
get.
really live on Social Security?
That's
There are
unfortunately
people,
there
yes,
are
there
the
are.
majority
Yes.
of people. The majority of people, the vast majority of people who receive Social Security, that is their primary source
Boy,
of
isn't it?
income.
What about the ones who get Social Security disability? That's
Well, yeah, I mean those people as well. In fact, I heard was listening just this morning on the radio in discussion of Social Security disability in Massachusetts. Actually, approximately 5 or 6% of the people who are collecting Social Security are collecting Social Security disability. The Northeast,
but
has
you don't
a,
have to have worked even
no,
to,
well,
to
no,
get
well, no,
there.
you've
Really?
had to depending upon the situation for disability, yes, you would have had to work a certain number of period of time in order to collect disability payments. Now, there's different types of people who collect Social Security disability. Some of those people were never capable of being able to work, and they start receiving those payments at age 18. Those are people who unfortunately have not capable of
That's
working.
amazing.
So, but actually, yes, a vast majority of people.
I know we go from taxes to politics. This Social Security disability. People get their kids diagnosed with
Well,
something which we all didn't pay attention in
Right,
class, and now they
exactly.
put
Yeah.
a tag on it. They get Social Security. Is it true that type of Social Security disability you don't have to declare it as income?
Well, no, it is effectively you.
Oh, you
What
have?
you have to declare it as income, but it
it's
won't be
not-
taxable
Isn't
because
that funny?
theoretically, or in actuality, in order to continue collecting the Social Security disability, you cannot have any. You can only have a small amount of income. So that's.
But yet, Social Security payments, isn't that income, though?
Yes,
that,
yeah, that's
now,
a
that
very
doesn't
good point.
seem right.
Yeah, well,
like
that's
double,
it is double
taxation.
taxation. Yes, what had happened maybe about 15 years ago was that it might have been part of the, or it might be longer than that, but I can't recall. Is that once you reach a certain income level, up to 85, and the top amount is 85%. 85% of Social Security becomes taxable income for federal purposes, not for state, but only for federal purposes. So that, if you have a nice retirement income through, your 401k plan, or you were lucky enough to have a pension, and you had other investment income, most of that Social Security check that you're going to be receiving, you're going to be paying more taxes on it. So it's definitely double dipping.
See, I think there should just be a sales tax, one tax for all, and that's it. But then, would you still have a job?
The whole idea is that everyone will always have a job, because that unfortunately will never happen, because you have all the special
Yeah.
interest groups and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Let's see. Now you're the expert. I'd like to know more. Like, you have to do so many hours of training every year.
Yes,
Tell
actually,
us about it. I want to
CPAs.
show our audience how qualified you are.
CPAs have some of the most rigorous educational requirements. To maintain your license, and it's basically today the CPA license is a global license, so that I can practice in all 50 states.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that has
Camille's
changed.
daughter's a CPA now. Can she practice everywhere?
Yes,
But
that's
she's in
that's
Rhode Island.
yeah, that's
Oh, isn't
now
that
the yeah. So
wonderful?
that is the way. Before it used to be state specific, very much like attorneys, but now it's global, so that across every state you
Oh,
you
well,
can
what
practice.
about isn't Rhode Island or New Jersey or Florida has no state income tax, right?
Right. Yeah.
So isn't that different? Aren't they?
Well,
different?
yeah. I mean, the fact is that every state has different tax laws, and if you're going to do the work in those states, you need to be familiar with that. I mean, I have clients in Florida, California, across the country.
Do you ever recommend to people that they move to Florida so they don't have to
Well,
pay
I had
state
one
income?
client who was all ready to move to Florida. He bought a business down there, and within 6 months, he decided that was the worst decision he ever made. And
Really?
Now he's
Why?
trying. He found the people in Florida not to be very friendly.
I know that they don't drive well.
Well,
That's
yeah. He didn't. He thought that unfortunately it wasn't for him. So he's actually has to in the process of actually selling that business.
Oh, boy.
And so he was planning to move his whole family down there.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
Can he still
relocate.
say he's a resident? Do people really save money?
Yeah,
by
there's a
saying they're
significant
residents?
tax savings, but the state of Massachusetts, in every state, they actually have people go around and if they see a Florida car up here, in certain instances they'll track it to see how many days it's here, because if you're here more than 6 months,
You're
you're
supposed to.
you're
Yeah,
a resident,
right.
so it's 6 months in the day. So they've done that in the past, and they've gone after people.
Well, if you ever going to move, where would you move to?
Well, that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that point up, because going to talking about retirement, one of the
Yeah.
other major issues, of course, is you have Social Security, you're paying Medicare, but in order to be fully covered, you need to have great additional health insurance. So, of course, with the cost of health insurance today, it's surprising that there's a number of places outside this country, and again, I just read that
Outside the country.
outside the country that I just read this week that are great places to go. And I actually have one client, I know another person. a hot spot that people looking to become move to for retirement is Costa Rica.
I've
Have
heard
a-
nice things about
Costa
Costa
Yeah,
Rica.
Costa Rica, where the medical costs are quite low, and it's a very friendly country for
My
people.
niece went to, but isn't it though? Because I think she went to the Peace Corps there, Costa Rica.
Yeah, but it's there's a lot of
Really?
people. It's a big hot spot right now for people.
Costa Rica. Here I go.
And there's there's other.
Got to be kidding, right?
It's surprising there
You
are
got to
other.
be kidding. No, not time yet. Oh, isn't that Costa Rica?
Costa
Yeah.
Rica, Panama is another place.
Panama.
Panama. And actually, even Mexico is another area.
Mexico.
Yes, Mexico. And finally, the last one
Well,
I
they
think
let
was,
us in.
yeah, when you have money, they'll let you in. Colombia is the other place.
Really?
Colombia,
Yeah,
but that's
Colombia.
a South American.
South America. It's
They're all
mostly
Spanish speaking.
Yes, they're all Spanish-speaking countries.
Oh,
There was
so I
that. Those are
know
the.
a
Oh,
little
they were all
Spanish.
that. But Costa Rica is a real hot spot.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
A
very-
lot of Americans
A
go
A lot
there?
of American.
Oh,
As I
why-
said,
why
I have
not go there on
a client,
vacation anyway?
client who's just purchased a home there, not near retirement age, but his intent is to
To
his
live
wife
there,
establish. Yeah.
Can you have dual?
Dual
what
re-
about
dual
dual
citizenships,
Dual
yeah, dual
citizenship. A
citizenship.
niece of mine moved to Brazil. She has 2 little kids,
Mm.
and
She likes it there, doesn't she?
yeah, she really
Yeah.
loves it there.
I mean, there are, there's
don't know
articles
why,
that I've read on, which states are the best states. And
Oh, yeah, which states are the
mostly,
best
there are some southern states, South Carolina, North Carolina, where people do, which are great places to retire to, especially if you like, the South Carolina. I read the other day, as far as Myrtle Beach is still one of the cheaper
Oh, yeah,
places
Myrtle
to
Beach.
Surprisingly.
to buy a place on the beach. Is actually it's
That's
still
surprising.
it's still a very you can buy a home on the beach for $200,000 in Myrtle Beach.
Really, you
still.
would think
Yeah.
it would be more expensive.
Yeah.
We're running a travel agent. We went from politics to
On
social
the,
No, we didn't even get to the questions that I wanted to ask
Sure,
you.
go ahead.
You do that on purpose, so sooner or later we got to get you back. But I got to tell everybody, this guy knows what he's talking about. You truly are an expert because I
thank you.
check everything ahead of time. I want you to know. I mean, this is. I majored in taxes, but anyway, but of course they're all over. But for small business, because we're almost in, you got to be kidding, and we haven't even touched on everything. But with the businesses, the business climate, they used to recommend what type of business, and then they came out with limited partnerships, and now they're taxing on them, and so you may
Yeah,
not
that's a
go
good
into
point.
that.
Is that as far as one of the proposals that has been tossed out as far as the taxation is this discussion with corporations lowering corporate taxes, C corporations, which are where the individual is completely separate from the corporation, and bringing those tax rates down from 35% to maybe 20%. There's also been some discussion as far as S corporations, which again is the individual is separate from the legal entity,
Yeah,
but
but the
the
let me
income.
just-
Go ahead, sure.
it just says that
Yeah.
the C corporation is they pay their own taxes.
They pay
They're
their own
really
taxes.
separate. It's a
They're
separate
correct,
person.
right.
The S corporation it's an extension of yourself, even
That's
though you get the
correct.
shield of liability.
Yes, you have the shield
Oh,
of
okay.
liability, and it passes
Okay.
through to you.
Right,
The income
that's right.
passes through to you, and there's some discussion of limiting that pass-through income to a fixed rate
Oh,
at the same
really?
rate as the corporate rate, so that the
Ooh.
people won't be saying, "Oh, I'm going to become a C corporation now because I'm going to get taxed at a lower rate." So that in order to stop
Oh.
people shuffling around, they would do that for
Now, what
S
about the
corporations.
limited partnerships? Do people still go into that? Because years ago they weren't taxed. Now they're taxed locally.
Well,
so-
yeah, I mean, the whole idea with limited partnerships and what I recommend for most of my clients after, if they have a well-established business and it's been a business that is, profitable, is that they become S corporations. If they may initially start out as a limited liability company and they move to an S corporation, because there are some tax planning advantages of the S corporation over the limited liability in order to reduce taxes, the pass-through taxes.
Well, because it changed. We're in You Got to Be Kidding now, so we'll do that. That'll
Sure.
be, we'll just put the thing up and keep talking.
Sure.
About because that is, You Got to Be Kidding. People go into limited liability thinking they're all set, which they might have been a few years ago.
Right.
And now, aha, surprise.
Yeah.
So what did you tell them, go to an
Yeah,
S
well, I
corporation
actually
now?
could go to an S corporation, and it's a
Very
way.
interesting.
It's really a two-edged sword, because of the fact that if they stay as an LLC, they're going to be paying more taxes, and the
Yeah,
taxes they're going to be paying are Social Security taxes. So effectively, what they're doing is they're paying taxes for Social Security that, if they're young people, they may never get. Or they may get it at a reduced rate,
You're not
whatever it will
kidding
be.
either.
So if they're an S corporation, effectively that income, whatever this pass-through income, is not subject to Social Security taxes. So they're effectively reducing a future benefit that they have no idea whether or not they're going to get or not. So
Now, can this S corporation or this pay rent, like they're the same people?
yeah, because with an S corporation, there's this
I mean,
separate.
pay rent to the same
you could,
person?
yes, you can, but
But
effectively,
isn't there a, you
There-
gotta
I
be
mean, yes. I
careful?
mean, if you're paying rent, you have to report the rent as income on one side and as an expense
But
on
it's
the
not
other.
you don't have to pay Social Security on it.
No, you don't have to
But,
Social
but
Security.
doesn't the IRS go look to the small business people out there, and they're going to say, "You've got to be kidding!" No, we're not. But don't they look and see if you pay $100,000 in rent and you only take $10,000 in salary? Don't they say, "Hey, you shouldn't be"?
Yeah,
that's
well,
not
that
really
is
fair."
one of the
Isn't that a red
issues,
flag?
and that's a very good question. Every S corporation shareholder owner needs to take what's called reasonable compensation.
that's the word.
However, the IRS has never determined to say this is reasonable compensation. So it's on a case-by-case basis, effectively, by tax law in court cases, that reasonable compensation has been determined. So I make sure that all my clients, based upon the income of the business, are taking reasonable compensation. And as their business is growing, you increase the reasonable
So
compensation.
reasonably, what if would they pay if they were in another building like
well,
that?
yes,
Or
exactly.
what day of the week the examiner woke up on?
Effectively, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't have a very profitable S corporation business where the shareholder is not taking a salary. That sets up red
Oh,
flags.
yeah.
So that is the difference between that and a LLC, LLC partnership, where you really are not required nor expected, and that has been an issue in the last couple of years, is that really, if you're a partnership and just an LLC, legally you cannot take a salary. You can take a guaranteed payment, but you cannot take a salary.
Well, is there anything anybody ever said to you, "You've got to be kidding"? Because we have to end the show now, believe it or not.
Wow,
And
that went
I
by
don't
very
even know
quickly.
if we got to come back and get those other points.
We need, how many did we get through? A couple?
We do too?
Oh, we got
Got a
through
few more.
few more to
Oh,
go.
is it? Well,
Yes.
you got to be kidding. Gee, it's so great. It's so great to have you back. You're such a wealth of information. We covered so many different things.
Yeah,
But-
there's a lot to talk
How
about.
long have you been practicing?
I've had my own practice for over 15 years, and before that, I worked for public companies doing tax work and treasury work for close to 20 years.
So you're looking at over 30 years of
Oh,
tax
yes,
work. No
yeah.
wonder you.
And you're only 38.
Yeah, I'm
flow-
only 38.
That's you gotta be
Okay,
kidding.
Yeah, we gotta be kidding.
Okay, listen, Alan, it was wonderful to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure there's a lot more that we can learn from you. Things are always changing anyway.
Always changing.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
definitely would
really
like to have you
wonderful.
back.
Bravo.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
to our viewers, we thank you for tuning in today. If you have any questions about taxes or retirement, please let us know, and we'll be sure to ask our expert
Security,
here,
business
Social Security, all of
anything.
these things. Because this
And
gentleman is not just a tax
We're still going
accountant.
strong with the police book. Police officers are our friends. We got a lot of new towns.
Lots of 'em.
Okay, go.
So anyway, please let us know if you'd like more information, or if you have other topics you'd like to hear more about, because we do listen to what you ask us to do, and any request you make, we'll try to accommodate. Please do let us hear from you, because remember, this is your show. The law, your money,
Money,
and
and
you.
you.